Well, I started this Saturday, and I got quite a bit done on it, but I wanted to go ahead and finish it up this morning. I've worked a couple of hours on it Saturday, and I haven't been able to get back to it until just now. So I'm adding Gamsol, adding some solvent, just trying to smooth out some of the areas now that I've got this initial layer of pencil down. All this pigment now can be blended together. And again, this is UART sanded paper is the support that I'm using. And I'm using lightfast colored pencils, a variety of different pencil brands, all lightfast professional grade pencils. So I've got Luminance by Caran d'Ache, got Polychromos by Faber-Castell, and I did use Derwent Lightfast colored pencils as well. I used a few of those. That's their newest line of pencils. You know, you don't have to be too worried about some of the direction of the strokes too much with your paintbrush as you're laying this in here, getting all this solvent in here. Main purpose is just to blend this together and remove some of the graininess that you see and some of these hit and miss areas where there's not enough saturation in the tooth of the sanded paper. And this works very nicely. I mean, there's other ways of accomplishing this, but this is one of the fastest ways to do it. I'm trying to be careful about what I'm doing inside the bearded area because I haven't really got those areas saturated enough yet to be able to cover all of that with solvent yet. And again, this is just a layer because what I can do and what I will do is come back in there with another layer of pencil or 2 or 3 and be able to smooth out any of these areas that I still think need to be smoother than what they are right now. Okay. Now that's looking pretty good. I'm kind of satisfied with all of that. And the biggest problem I have when I start in some area and doing a certain or a particular thing is telling myself to stop and go on to the next thing. I'll just get hung up on all the details instead of just saying, okay, that's good enough, go on. And I need to just tell myself to do that right now. Okay. So one thing I was noticing, maybe if you recall, with the initial layout and then with putting on that first layer of pencils, if you were looking at the first 2 videos, especially the second one, you may have noticed, this is something I noticed, I'm making this subject look a little bit maybe older than what he is. And so one of the things that I've noticed with it is there's a little more white in the hair here in my drawing than what I have in my reference. And so that can date a person. And so I want to correct that. And I want to make sure that it looks a little more believable. And I was looking at that, trying to figure out why I had a little more white in there, or what was lacking, and what color I needed to add instead. And it's sort of a muted brownish color. And so I'm going to add that in here right now. And then I think my mind was tricking me a little bit. And this happens when you're drawing sometimes. You start looking at something and you start thinking about a particular hue that you're noticing, and you make that the predominant hue that you're depicting in a particular area. And so instead of noticing the color in the beard, I was noticing all the white. And I just need to correct that a little bit here. The darkest areas, most of those are shadows, but then there's sort of a middle value that's going on in the beard and mustache, and that's actually the color of a lot of the whiskers. And so I don't want to start portraying this as being darker than what it is. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Okay, that's good enough for right now. And I'm not going to, well, let me get this. I'm not going to worry about a whole lot of accuracy in the position of the beard and the direction of some of those whiskers right now. When I'm adding in darker colors, then the point is to get enough value in there, and I can worry about the direction of the whiskers later and worry about more of the details later. All right, so that served two purposes right there. Gave me a shadow under the nose. You know, it's very subtle, but it's still a slight shadow there. And then another little detail that I do want to include that I've been noticing is that these whiskers come out over here on the other side of the nose. This nose needs to come in just a little bit quicker here. And then there needs to be whiskers on that side. I need to just be aware of that, and then I'll correct that going forward. Karen, you're saying that his neck is longer. Yeah, I don't really think it is. I'll tell you why it's looking like that. And I didn't measure it yet, so you might be right. But I'll tell you why it looks like that, I think, is because this ear needs to be a little bit longer, a little more volume back here, and then there needs to be more shadow up in here. And once I get that value correct, then that will make the neck look a little bit more believable. Maybe even the tattoo in there, I'm not sure, but I didn't measure it yet. So you could be right and I could be wrong. Entirely possible. Actually, let's just do that. That's probably a good thing to just do. And thanks for pointing that out if this is the case. Even if it isn't, it's something that I need to look at. So I have to look at my reference. I haven't measured anything yet, so this is a good opportunity to do that. So 2 inches on this reference. Now, my particular drawing is entirely different scale than what the reference is. This reference is smaller than what I'm drawing. So there's roughly 2 inches there. So I have to correlate that 2 inches to something else. Okay, so like the corner of the ear, and maybe that edge of that nostril. And let's see if I can do it somewhere else. Corner of the ear and sort of the edge, not the corner of the ear, the edge of the cranium back here, and sort of the outer edge of this orbital over here, the very edge of the eye. So, okay, so let's see. So this is roughly 2.5 inches. And so corner here, what did I say? Corner to that would be around 2. Corner here to, that's roughly 2.5. And over here, and what did I say? Okay, where the orbital is. So that could, that's a very flimsy measurement right there. So I'm not real sure about that one. I'm going to let it go right now. You could be right. You might be right. It's easy enough to correct because then the sweatshirt just has to come up a little bit, which is fine. So thanks for pointing that out, and I'll keep an eye on it. Okay, and then let's see. Come back in here. I want to get more of that skin tone in the beard. And one of the reasons why I love sanded paper, if I haven't mentioned it, is because it's so forgiving. You can make, whatever mistakes you want, and you can correct those later. It's just so forgiving in that regard. And you can go over dark areas again with light pencils. Another advantage that sanded paper has over just like cotton paper or something like that, especially something that is very rigid, like a smooth paper, or one of the plastic papers like a Duralar or something like that. You have difficulty with those kind of papers going back and lightening up an area. I mean, it can be done, but it's more challenging. And there is a point of no return. Sometimes it can't be done. Okay, let's see here. Sometimes it's worth it just to step back and, take a look at everything and just see what's going on. See if everything is looking correct. And if it isn't, then it's a good time to reevaluate. So I want to add some of this shadow back in here. Okay, that beard's just bothering me. I've got to smooth some of that out, get some of the that skin color down in the beard, and then I can restate some of those whiskers up in the cheek, which is what we want. And this color in here doesn't have to be real accurate. I'm just establishing a tone down in here where I want the beard to be. It doesn't take much solvent at all. I always have to remember that. It spreads out quite a bit, and it dries really fast. And so if I get too much on my brush, then I have a problem. You can have a problem where it will just run and just bleed over into other areas that you don't want it to go into. Okay. We're nearly getting to that ugly stage of the drawing. Nearly. We are in the ugly stage of the drawing, where it just starts to look sloppy, messy, ugly. And if you're not thinking about the end result, it can even look a little scary to you as the artist. You're like, uh-oh, what just happened? Am I going to be able to reestablish some of those things that I thought were going well? And yeah, you will. You'll be able to do that, but it can be a little frightening sometimes. Okay, and I'll come out this way. So don't think you'll ever get over that, especially if you're just starting out and you're new to drawing. There are times you'll always go through that and you'll feel like that something isn't working right. And I don't know. I just don't think that you'll ever just totally overcome that. It can still happen no matter how long you've been drawing. Okay. Now I can take advantage of this brush right in here in the beard and sort of show some of the direction of the beard a little bit. And then I can reestablish some of the smaller, thin pencil lines that depict whiskers and are telling me something's a whisker later on with just a pencil. But right now I can get some of these darker shadows in the beard a little more blended and a little more saturation in here, which can look nice. Now this part up in here is what I was talking about earlier. This really needs to be part of the beard over there, and that it's kind of skewing the way the nose looks. And now one thing I can do is I can go out here in my background and push that back in there. This background isn't completely done at all, and it will look totally different by the time we're done. So I can just push that around a little bit. That's probably good. Okay. Now I can let that dry and go back in a different area, not mess with that for a moment. Or I can, let me see here. I can show that this part right in here is part of the part of the mustache, like I was saying, and not the beard. That should be enough for right now, and then I can work on that a little more later. That's good. All right. I want to smooth this out and push some of that darker area back over. There we go. And again, this is just one layer, and it can change again whenever I'm laying more pencil in here. I can come back in here and put some of the smaller, darker hairs in here. There we go. Using sepia 50%. I think that's the, yeah, that is the 50%. There's a definite value that's darker right in there. And then there's this definite one over here, which I can work on refining that later. But I want to kind of establish a little bit of a roadmap there and let myself know. Just let it just kind of dictates to me where that is when I go back to it. And up in here, I need to sharpen this pencil. There we go. Yeah, sanded paper doesn't hold the point very long. But if you keep your pencil rotating in your hand, moving it around, then you'll keep a sharper point longer because you're sort of sharpening it as you go, as you're drawing. Now I'm paying very careful attention to the direction of the strokes now. And let's see here. And I have to have the right angle with my hand for that stroke to be able to give me a small point on the pencil. Otherwise, I'll have some fat pencil strokes that won't look real convincing. And the direction here is sort of this circular direction with the way that the whiskers are growing. So I want to pay attention to that. There we go. Let's see. You know, the funny thing about drawing and talking at the same time is sometimes you sound like you're tired, or like you are out of it. And that's just because your motor skills are a little impaired. When you're drawing, you're engaging a different part of your brain, and so then using language and speaking sometimes becomes a bit of a challenge. And if you're an artist, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a couple of things I need to take a look at here. And I'm trying to figure out which pencil I'm going to use. I think I'll use this one. But as I look at the ear, it's actually needs to come in more like this direction over here. You always, for me, I always want to look at accuracy, even in the middle of a drawing. If you're doing it freehand, like I'm doing with this one, then I'm always looking for accuracy issues the entire time. Just like Karen pointing out that the neck might be too long, and that could be the case. But it could be something else. Could be that the angle of the ear, just like right now, I'm noticing that this angle right here in the ear is not right. It's incorrect. And so that needs to be corrected. And then I'll go back up this way. Just want to suggest something in here so that I can pay attention to it later on. And then that would push the earlobe out a little further this way. The ear might come in here a little bit more. And then I got to think about if that angle's like that. I think about the back of the head and that angle over there. Yeah, Karen, you might be right, actually, now that I'm looking at this a little bit more. This neck might appear too long, and so then this angle actually right here where the sweatshirt is, I think is not it's tapered. I think it's tapered a little bit more, like starts up here, I think. So we need to pay attention to that, and I might want to push that back down, or actually bring that up. And okay, that nose is looking better. Let's see. It's over here. Wrinkles can be a very tricky thing because you don't want to put too many wrinkles in there, and that will age a person, and that's the last thing you want to do, is make them look older than what they are, unless that's what you want to do. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play around with that ear a little bit more because it needs to come out here like this, just a little bit more. So I do have a larger. I think I'll take a look at that. I have a larger image over on the wall that I can look at from a distance and measure. So I want to take a look at that from where the ear is, not the earlobe. And actually, because that earlobe, I'm going to move a little bit. So I'm going to look at the nose a little bit, and the nose in relationship to, let me see here, in relationship to the neck and where that sweatshirt is. Corner of the nose, maybe top of the edge of the ear. And then I can take that back to my drawing and look at those same areas. Yeah, that ear actually needs to move quite a bit, which is fine. And no time like the present, just to dive right in here, I guess, and try and move that ear. So one of the things we'll do is use solvent and just muddy that up, and then I can move where the edge of that ear is on the bottom side. There we go. Okay. And this part needs to be pushed back just a little bit. I can reestablish the crease in there where the dark area is, and then push this more like this angle. And then muddy that just a little bit with some solvent. There we go. And okay. And then I want to let that dry. Give that some time to dry. There we go. While I'm in there, I'm just going to mute that down or muddy that a little bit, so I can move that as well, because it'll have to move. All right. There we go. And then those darker values that I put back in there under the neck, I don't want those to look quite that dark. I don't want it to be something that's distracting to me as I'm adding more pencil strokes in there. So I want to obscure those a little bit by using some solvent. There we go. Okay. And I can push around some of those shadows a little bit more. That should be good. Okay. Okay, then I just want to look it over again and see if there's anything else at this stage. This is the area, the stage that I would call the ugly stage, which is fine. Let's see. I'm looking over at my other image over on the wall as well. No, I think this is fine. I'll let it dry, and then I'll be able to come back in there and fix some of these issues to be able to make it a little more accurate. So, all right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And I'm going to go ahead and stop this live stream.